Good morning. Welcome to Learning to Lift Phase 2. This will be the pull workout. So we're halfway through this entire workout program. It is 12 weeks, phases, and we are halfway through the program at this point. Fitness tip for today, just thinking about learning to lift and the key principles that we want to be working on as we progress. So we've talked about minimal effort. We've talked about sleep. We've talked about protein. We've talked about sets and reps. Let's talk a little bit about programming today. And so, for most people, what's going to be most effective is finding something that they really enjoy and being able to stick to it. And so, we've talked a little bit about, two compound lifts, 4 or 5 days a week versus, 3 to 4 compound lifts, 3 days a week, 2 to 3 days a week, something like that. And both of those approaches will work very well. But let's talk a little bit about what those compound lifts should entail and what we should be looking at in a week or 8 days, maybe even 10-day cycle. Because we don't necessarily have to take it on a week by week basis. That just happens to be the timeline that we use. But depending on your schedule and how things roll, you may not have to stick to a week long schedule. We can bump it to 8 days or to 9 days. So, uh, a little bit about programming. We're talking about compound lifts. So, what do we want to focus on? If we're talking about chest, we want to focus on incline press, possibly bench press, depending on shoulder mobility and that kind of thing. We want to talk about for shoulders, like a shoulder press or an Arnold press, something that's going to be a pressing motion, get all heads of the delt involved, but at the same time, give us a full range of motion at your legs. So we've got quad dominant stimulus and then, of course, glute dominant stimulus. Good options that are in these videos are, of course, a barbell squat and a Bulgarian split squat. Both of those are effective for quads, particularly, but they will also build your glutes. A hip thrust is another good option for a little more glute development. And then we want to talk about hamstrings because hamstrings tend to get forgotten. And of course, in this program, they're not forgotten. We've talked about them multiple times with the Romanian deadlifts. And that it's a wonderful exercise for working your hamstrings. For back, we've looked at bent over barbell row and we've looked at deadlift for a full posterior chain type situation for compound movements. We've also looked at a pull up. And so all of those are excellent compound movements that are going to work your back. If we just incorporate a couple of these each time we lift, then we're going to hit primarily most of the target muscle groups. When we're hitting chest, we're also getting a little bit of tricep. When we're hitting back, we're getting a little bit of bicep. When we're hitting quads, we're getting a little glute. When we're hitting glute, we're getting a little quads. When we're hitting hamstrings, we're getting a little back involvement, and so on and so forth. And then with the shoulders, obviously to getting the shoulder movements up top, work shoulders, triceps, biceps, so on. You do at least one exercise for abdominals and core strength. I would rotate that through with some weighted crunches if you have access to something like that, some decline sit ups if you have access to something like that. Both of those can be progressed with weight and so on. So you can, and with the decline, you can start at a lower angle and work your way up to a higher angle. And so a couple of different ways that you can progress those. And those are going to be the ones that I look at from a primary situation. But then we also want to mix in a little bit of rotation along the way. So doing something that rotates the core so some down to up twists and some up to down twists would be helpful if you have access to a cable machine in particular. You can also do a dumbbell with some of that. It's just not quite as effective because of the resistance curve. So those things we can work at. You can also add in a little bit of isolation, maybe one isolation movement per muscle group. So think chest and maybe a fly or an incline fly. When you think shoulders, think of a lateral raise or something similar to that, rear delt fly, something like that. When you think back, think of a lat pull down. When you think of hamstrings, you can think of like a lying leg curl or a seated leg curl. For quadriceps, you can think about leg extension, something like that, maybe even a leg press, depending on what equipment you have access to. Talking curls and tricep extensions, all those kind of things as isolation exercise. Don't get caught up in the weeds on those. Let's just pick one or two a week to kind of sprinkle in and pick the body part that you want to work on the most. So, if you really want to work on your arms, then, hit a bicep and tricep isolation exercise once a week. If you really want to work on your back, then, lat pull downs once a week or so. Let's make it simple. Let's understand what the exercises are, and then let's find the ones that we really enjoy and the things that work well in our body. As we age, certain exercises are going to work better for some people than they are for other people. You need to find what those are. You don't need to be miserable. You don't need to put your body at risk. When it comes down to it, that's kind of some basics for programming and understanding what you need to do just to be able to kind of get started and to maintain a good, healthy, longevity driven physique, and you'll gain 70 to 80% of the benefits right there. So now let's get into the pull workout. I hope you enjoy. I hope this has been helpful. If there are any questions, please put a comment, let us know, and we'll get it on the next video. Thanks. Have a great day. So we start the day with heavy deadlifts. We do 3 sets of 3, really heavy. This is a great strength stimulus. And as you can see, we want to use the equipment that we have on hand. That can be a conventional deadlift and or a trap bar. In this instance, we're using a trap bar for a little additional set. Now we move to pull-ups. This is 3 sets of 12, very intense compound movement for the back, and works well. It is an excellent movement, but obviously this is something that takes some time to be able to progress and to get to that number of reps. So as you can see, there's a band there to use for additional stability and help along the way if you need it to get started. Chest supported dumbbell row. We really want to work on full range of motion and getting everything that we can from our lats at this point. This is an excellent exercise as it makes you and forces you to be supported so that you can't cheat the reps and you have to use your lats. Be sure to focus on full range. Alternating dumbbell curls, excellent exercise. There again, more of an isolation movement. So it doesn't want to be our primary focus, but it is something that's worthwhile in building your biceps. And we'll move straight from there on to another isolation exercise for the biceps, and that is our hammer curl. Now we're on to hammer curls, and we'll use this to finish off the bicep portion of the workout. Excellent way to keep a neutral grip, try to help keep your elbows healthy and your shoulders healthy as you run through another variation of a curl. And that's it for the pull workout in phase 2. Hope you enjoyed and look forward to seeing you next time. Please like and subscribe. Thanks again for coming.